Hi, and welcome to the NBA show. My name is Morten Jensen, and today we'll be discussing Ben Simmons, much as promised. My friend and co-host Bryan Toporek is alongside with me. A couple of weeks ago, maybe even a small month ago, we talked about Ben Simmons, and we promised you a YouTube exclusive where we just broke down what do we make of Ben. And look, given what happened in the Atlanta Hawks series, that topic is more relevant than ever before. So Bryan, where the hell do we start here?
That's the $100 million question, isn't it?
I think it is. I mean, I don't even have a proper word for it. I don't want to call him useless, because obviously you can't be useless when you are a multi-purpose defender, multi-positional defender, of course, someone who can initiate the offense, someone who's a plus rebounder. Like, I think people are too harsh on Ben right now, just in terms of the backlash. But I think it's also at the same time extremely reasonable to say that he cannot create anything in the half court. And it's not just a jumper. He's just passive. He's timid. Free throw shooting was a mental issue, I think, all throughout the entire playoffs. Like, he had that very already now infamous move in the fourth quarter where he had basically a wide open dunk or layup, whatever, and then he passed it to Matisse Thybulle, who got fouled. I mean, what the hell? You're a Sixers guy. You watch the Sixers more than I do. What's the inside scoop here?
I mean, this is, anyone who's surprised by this hasn't been paying attention for the last couple of years, because this happened against Boston in 2008. It happened against Toronto in 2018. Sorry, Toronto in 2019. He was hurt last year for the Boston sweep, and then, you know, he was pretty good throughout the Wizards series. There were some times, like game one, he wasn't aggressive as a scorer, but he did his damage as a facilitator. Later in the series, he turned on his scoring, but the Wizards had no one to defend him. Like, they were just so, you know,
because it's the Wizards.
Right, exactly. They weren't a playoff caliber team. The Hawks, even though they were missing, I mean, I can't even imagine what this series would have looked like if they had a healthy DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish. I don't think it goes 7. I think the Hawks probably close the Sixers out in 5 or 6 in that case. But I mean, this has been the story of Ben Simmons' career, and I think you said it well on the pod. I think it was the last episode. Ben Simmons right now is an 82-game player. And that isn't to say that he's not a very good 82-game player, that he's not a deserving all-star, which he was. He finished second of the year in Defensive Player of the Year voting. So, like, there are ways to use him. I think the question that the Sixers have to ask themselves is, can we count on this guy in the playoffs moving forward? And if not, what do we do?
Yeah. I think the answer at this point is a resounding no. I mean, unless he proves it otherwise, and he hasn't. And one thing, you know, people are going to come in with all their hot takes and whatnot, but I can't help but think that there's more to it than just a lacking jump shot. I mean, this is a guy who's like 6'10", 240. He's built like a Greek god. He can get to the basket anytime he wants to. He's just so much in his own head. He's thinking about, oh, is it better for a Joel Embiid post up? Is it better to swing the ball out for a Seth Curry 3? Like, he's so in his head where sometimes, especially in playoffs, you just need a bucket. And if you're the guy who can create that off the dribble, you need to go get it. And he doesn't. And you could just sense on his teammates as well. This is a thing. They are, I don't want to say they're shaking their heads at him, but you can sense there's a high level of frustration when he's just standing around and not affecting the game, because it puts so much pressure on everyone else. I mean, the Sixers, in some capacity, when they're in half-court situations, are playing 4-on-5 basketball.
Yeah, more often than not in the playoffs. I mean, Ben's primary responsibility in the half-court offense are either stand at the dunker spot, which crowds the paint for Joel, or set a screen and then run away. Like, he's not involved in the offense. But, you know, if he's standing out in the perimeter, they don't have to guard him, because it's not even that he can't hurt them from 15 feet. It's that opponents know he's not going to take that shot. So there is absolutely no point in defending him. And then you can devote more defensive attention elsewhere, probably double teaming Joel Embiid. So, you know, part of it is spacing, and I think the Sixers did improve their floor spacing with the acquisitions of Danny Green and Seth Curry. I do think the absence of Danny Green in this series, not to like lean on injuries as an excuse or why the Sixers lost, but I don't think it was a coincidence that they really kind of fell apart after Danny got hurt. It just kind of speaks to his quiet importance to this team. And, especially moving forward, he's a free agent this summer. I think having seen what the team looks like without him, I think they're going to prioritize bringing him back as best they can. But for Ben, I mean, Doc Rivers spoke with the media yesterday, and Doc has been really defensive of Ben all year. He, anytime someone brought up like Ben's lack of scoring, Doc would say, well, look at everything else he does. Look at what he does defensively. Look at what he does in transition. Look at what he does as a facilitator. And there was kind of this detente between him and reporters where it's like, yeah, okay, that's great. But we've seen this play out in the playoffs before. And we're just asking these questions because he still hasn't really shown any signs of offensive development in the half court. I mean, this year, I think there were times that he did. He actually started showing off like a little bit of a hook shot, with either hand. He would back someone down in the post and turn to this hook. And it's not a high efficient shot in terms of, he's not going to hit it like 60, 70% of the time. And like the points per possessions are not super high on that type of play anyway. But at least it was some counter, some way to make himself useful in the half court. We just didn't see that in the Atlanta series at all. So I think for Ben, the focus has always been the 3-point shot. That has never been the correct thing to focus on. He's got to work inside out. So the free throw shooting has to be the number one priority this summer because that affects every other aspect of his game. If he's scared to draw contact and go to the line because he's either in his head or he just thinks he's not a high volume, high efficiency free throw shooter, he's not going to draw contact. We're going to see things like that Game 7 possession where, he said after the game, I thought John Collins was there. I thought he was just going to like jump up and land on me. It's like, okay, draw the foul, Ben. Like that's okay. But I mean, when you're shooting 30% from the free throw line in the playoffs, it's understandable why he doesn't want to do that. So if he can get up to 70, 75, like God forbid, 80% from the line, all of a sudden that's going to unlock him being more aggressive on his drives because then he's less scared to draw contact, less scared to go to the free throw line. I think beyond that, you just need some semblance of a post game or a mid-range game, a floater like what Trae Young killed the Sixers with for a lot of that series.
Yeah.
I really think he could benefit from just working with Tobias Harris all summer. Like Tobias Harris had a career best year in large part. I mean, he quietly averaged almost 3 post-ups per game. He was averaging, I think, a little over a point per possession on those plays in the 69th percentile league-wide. Like having that, some semblance of, I can take someone down one-on-one and score on them. That's what Ben needs more than a 3-point shot. Like that can come later, but let's focus on like, can you score more than 3 feet away from the basket? Because right now the answer is no.
I love that you're saying Ben should work with Tobias. That insinuates to me that you want Ben back with the Sixers next year.
Well, so I mean, that's the question, and that's what I want to float to you because that's really been the discussion throughout this whole series, but especially since Sunday night among Sixers folks. I've never seen the fan base this out on Ben.
Yeah. But
at the same time, his value is probably at an all-time low.
Yeah.
So if you're Daryl Morey, can you go into next season with Ben Simmons still on this roster, or do you think they absolutely have to trade him this offseason?
I think they're caught. That's where I look at that situation. Friend of the podcast and friend of this show also, Tom West, who you know very well. He and I had a back and forth on Twitter, and I was more or less telling him, you know what? It's such a weird situation because one is, can you really bring him back, knowing full well that the fan base is out on him, and knowing knowing full well that there's a limit to what you can achieve in the playoffs with him on the roster. Mm-hmm. And then there's that second thing is, but if you do go that route, you're never going to optimize their trade return because right now teams are hanging up. They are not going to go into this with an open mind. Teams are going to play a lot of hardball with the Sixers on this. I mean, he's also got, 3 years left on his contract?
4.
4 years left. Is it
4 years?
Left? Yeah.
Yeah.
At over 30, what's the average? Almost 40 million per year, right? Almost.
I think it's 4 years, 147 million left.
All right. That's a tremendous amount of money for someone who just stunk up the joint in the playoffs as he just did. So the trade value is just not there. That's also why we've seen a couple trades floated. Like, why would the Bulls go for Simmons by sacrificing Zach LaVine, for example? Like, I'm at that point right now where that much discussed trade between the Sixers and Blazers, like Ben for CJ McCollum, I'm not even sure the Blazers go, well, you know what? That's an even trade. I mean, we're seeing right now in the NBA that the most important skill is jump shot creation, or at least just shot creation for oneself. Like, Ben can create shot for others, that's fine, but he can't create a jump shot for himself. He can't even create a drive for himself because he's either scared or he just doesn't do it. So, offensively speaking, the downgrade is just so significant. I don't remember who said this, and I found it interesting. Like, someone basically said, CJ McCollum is like 20% the defender that Ben Simmons is, but he's also 250% the offensive player that Ben is, right? So that doesn't really add out if you bring out, like, if you average it out. And I think you need to find a player who is similar in trade value, and then if you do that, it's not a good player that the Sixers would get in return. It's like some pseudo starter, whatever. I don't know. But I would be surprised if there are teams out there who are just basically willing to go, here, take my all-star. That's fine.
Right.
I don't know if that team is out there. If it is, go do it immediately. But you said something interesting on the pod. That was not even that was before we all had all these things. It was months ago, maybe even more than maybe even a year ago. We talked about Ben and his future there. I think it was actually after the bubble where they were bounced in 4, and I was pretty much out on the Sixers. Yeah, that's almost a year ago. Yeah. And you basically said, I think the most important thing is to get someone who fits. Like, if you're trading Ben, it should be to optimize Joe. And if you optimize Joe, well, you need to get a guy in there who fits Joe. You can't get another non-shooter in there. You can't get someone in there who resembles Ben. So, like, what's the answer here? Is the answer going for someone who might be less talented but is a better fit? Do you live with the lost cost of not getting proper value out of Ben Simmons? I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Daryl Morey was asked directly today, can you guarantee that Ben Simmons will be on the roster? And like any good general manager, he weaseled his way out by saying, look, most teams would kill to be in our shoes, right? We have an MVP caliber player. We have an all-star in Ben Simmons. We have a near all-star in Tobias Harris. A lot, like, it's a good problem to have, right? Which is, to some extent true, to some extent not. But he wouldn't go as far as to guarantee that anyone will still be on the roster. Like, you can't predict the future. So, he did not come out guns blazing and say, yes, Ben Simmons will definitely be on this team next year. I think you're right. Teams are going to lowball the Sixers right now. Like, the days of Ben Simmons is the centerpiece of a James Harden trade, those are gone. Like, Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, you are not getting those caliber players with Ben Simmons unless you're attaching Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, all of your picks moving forward. Like, Ben Simmons could be not salary filler, but, the salary matching plus, I think there are going to be teams out there that see him and say, we can fix him, or we can optimize him better than the Sixers can because we don't have Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid on our roster. We don't have guys, who are going to take up space in the paint and like the offense is going to run through them. I guess I thought, Sunday night after the game, someone asked Doc Rivers, do you think Ben Simmons can be the point guard on a championship team? And Doc said, I don't know the answer to that question right now. So what do you think Ben Simmons, like, what is an optimized Ben Simmons? Is it a full-time ball handler, or do you want him more as like a Draymond Green secondary playmaker, short roller, that type of thing?
I am so glad you brought up Draymond Green, because I've seen this being floated. I'll answer your question, but I think it's really important to actually get this out of the way. I've seen people basically say, well, he can be a Draymond Green kind of guy. I understand it from a talent perspective, like from an individual skill perspective. But can you and I agree right off the bat that one of the main differences between the two is that Draymond has a mentality that is like leagues above where Ben is. Like Ben, and by the way, saying someone is fragile is not meant as something negative. It's not in terms of, oh, he's a weak human being. I don't put that on Ben. I don't think that's appropriate. And I do think he gets flustered in the heat of the moment. Draymond does not at any point. Like he's almost the exact opposite. He goes into everything with a confidence level that sometimes is even too much. Ben is the opposite. So I wonder, can you even put Ben into that situation and tell him, yeah, you can be the new Draymond if he's just wired so very differently? I don't know. In my world, to answer your question now, I would love for him to be the primary guy on a team, but he just be the guy who breaks down the defense, who has shooters everywhere and just feast, like sort of Giannis, right? But like, he starts and ends with him. He has to be willing to take those drives. He has to be willing to say, okay, I can't settle for 10 shots a game. I have to shoot 18 times. That's like a bare minimum is 18 shots a game. Like so like, you can ask like and put up certain scenarios like Wolves and whatnot. It all boils down to his level of aggressiveness. It all boils down to where he is as a basketball player. If he's not willing to take more shots, if he's not willing to get near to the basket, then every point, every idea, every concept you and I grew up is mute.
Yeah, and I thought Doc spoke with reporters yesterday and was asked a ton about Ben Simmons, and he said this, which I found interesting. I believe, without going into detail with what we're doing, I believe we know what the right work is and the right type of work and the right way to do it. You can do the work all the time, but if it's not done in the right way and the right type of work, you may not improve. After being here for a year, I really do believe we've identified what and how, and now we have to do the do part. We have to work to do it. It's not going to be an easy job, but it's definitely a job that Ben can do. So I think that's kind of the fundamental question the Sixers have to ask themselves. Do they believe that they, can get Ben to take this offensive leap that he has not taken in his first 4 NBA seasons? And do they believe they can get him to do it this offseason? Because we are smack dab in Joel Embiid's prime. Like, the time for waiting is over. We need to maximize, he's not going to last forever. And especially given his litany of injury history, we can't be sure. Like, this might have been our best chance already. Like, there's a non-zero chance that we just blew our best opportunity to win a title with Joel Embiid. But, we have to operate under the assumption that moving forward, maybe we get another year or two where Embiid's playing at this MVP caliber level. God forbid he doesn't tear some ligament in the playoffs for once. Can Ben Simmons get to the level that he needs to be by next playoffs? Like, I don't think he will be by the start of next season, but you have 82 games to workshop it. If not, I think Daryl's going to explore Ben trades this offseason.
Oh, undoubtedly.
There's no question in my mind, and we will get to some potential options shortly. I don't think there's pressure necessarily if they think, if they're encouraged by the progress that Ben is making over the next couple weeks. There's a world wherein Ben Simmons starts next season on the Sixers. I think, it's not 100% that Ben Simmons will be traded this offseason.
Right.
You can start next season, see how it goes. The trade deadline's a thing. Like, maybe the Bulls aren't willing to trade Zach LaVine now, or the Wizards aren't willing to trade Bradley Beal now, but you get to the trade deadline next year, things have gone off the rails. These guys are giving every signal that they're not going to re-sign in 2022.
Right.
All of a sudden, their price is lower. Ben Simmons can be, so that, there is potentially some value in waiting, especially if he can wash the bad taste out of the league's mouth
right.
with a decent start next year. But I don't think there's any question that if someone comes and offers him a reasonable package, he's going to take it. Like, I do not think that Ben Simmons should feel confident in his roster spot next year.
The thing that worries me from the Sixers' point of view in that scenario of yours is, what if he comes back next year and we called him an 82-game player. Mm-hmm. What if he's not even that next year? What if this got stuck and next year he, instead of shooting 60% from the line, he's shooting 40. Instead of taking 10 shots a game, he's taking 8. You know what I mean? Just basically doubling down on the passiveness and timidness. If that happens, then even those deals like Beal, Levine, guys who want out maybe at that point in time, like even those deals are not going to be on the table. Because that contract is absolutely huge. So it's absolutely crucial for Ben in a weird way that he makes himself a trade candidate also, so he can just get away. It's really weird. I think for my money, you brought up something interesting that I really hadn't thought about. Like Joel Embiid being the size that he is, that maybe he's still going to regress or decline faster. Mm-hmm. Like, you forget that he's already 27. Not that 27 is old, but for someone with his injury history, it's fair to ponder, can we get another 5 years out of him? Maybe not. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can only get 2 or 3. That's actually a very interesting angle. And you know what is going to change my entire response to this? Yeah, you need to trade Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a thing for Forbes yesterday. They have to shop him at least. It seems like it's run its course. I wouldn't trade him for, like, not that Dennis Schroeder's under contract, but like I would not trade him. We're just gonna slander Dennis Schroeder throughout the offseason. Always. But I would not trade Ben Simmons straight up for Dennis Schroeder, something like that. But if there's a reasonable deal out there, the Ben for CJ one's going to be the most popular framework, but there are other potential options. You certainly have to consider it. You just have to ask yourself, I think the fundamental question the doc was asked, is Ben Simmons the point guard of a championship team? That is one worth pondering. And if not, if his best role is a playmaking forward, you already have Tobias, you already have Joe, he's not going to be maximized in Philly.
Right.
And, Daryl was saying today, like, look, it's great that we have these 3 guys on, 3 near all-stars on these big contracts, but it also limits our flexibility. We can't do sign-in trades. We're going to be able with the luxury tax. We're only have the taxpayer mid-level. Like, it's not going to be easy to find that lead guard unless, Tyrese Maxey makes a major leap or they find a Reggie Jackson who signs a mid deal with them. Like, they could stumble into it, but the odds are firmly against them. Like, Kyle Lowry takes a $30 million discount to sign the taxpayer mid-level. Like, that's probably not going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, you're probably like there's a real chance that if you're not confident you can maximize Ben and he can maximize Joe, that you're going to have to, like, you're not going to win this trade. You're probably going to be seen as the loser value-wise, and it could come back to haunt you if you trade Ben to Portland and he and Dame establish chemistry, which I actually think they would fit pretty well together.
I have some thoughts about that, but I understand, like, from a pure X's and O perspective.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's a real chance that Ben Simmons, if they end up trading him, he will go elsewhere. He will be fine, and they will look like they got less value in the deal. Regarding your, what if this carries over to the regular season? It's certainly a concern. I think, Tobias was talking about this after Game 7, just kind of like the difference between regular season and playoff basketball, and he called it fool's gold in a way. So, the Sixers throughout the regular season had the second best defense. They were dynamic in transition, and that's where Ben really makes his money as well. You're not going to have as many opportunities in the playoffs where, the regular season teams aren't giving their full effort on defense every possession. Like, or you're going to go, he's saying, like, you might face a great defensive team one night and then a terrible defensive team the next night. So, you can bolster your stats and feel great about how you look in this game because you're, forcing 10 turnovers and creating 30 for fast break points off of that. You might not have that opportunity in the playoffs, which I think is what we've seen with Ben. As the game slows down, becomes more half-court oriented, he has less of an opportunity to put his imprint on the game. Now,
right, someone like Seth Curry is much more influential.
Right. So if if Ben Simmons, if they're confident that Ben Simmons could be more of a factor in the half-court offense moving forward, then that, opens the door to keeping him and figuring out how to make that work. But I think that's certainly, that goes back to the theory of this guy right now is an 82 game player. And he's going to have to figure out how to make an imprint in the playoffs, or, I don't think you can have him as your second highest paid player on the roster and expect to go very far. Like I even if they beat the Hawks, they were going to get crushed by the Bucks.
Yeah.
And I was accused of being a Sixers hater, even though I watched this godforsaken team for most of the past decade. Like, I was trying to be realistic about this team. I think overall, compared to where they were last year, this season was progress. But Daryl said it today. It still wasn't good enough. And he's going to have to work, and Doc's going to have to work, and the players are going to have to work this offseason. All of them need to work to improve the roster, their own skills. Doc with his rotation pattern, especially in the playoff. Like, all of them, this was not just like a Ben Simmons failed the Sixers.
Right.
All of them share some blame for what happened against the Hawks. Ben's going to be the most popular scapegoat because of how his limitations kind of trickle down to affect the rest of the team.
Yeah, he is the most faulty player of the bunch.
Yeah, and I think, that's going to be, that's really where Daryl has to start this offseason. It's like, that is the number one question with a bullet on the offseason to-do list is, what do we do with Ben Simmons? Do we believe he can improve to the extent that we need to this offseason? And if not, who has something of value that can improve our standing, even if, quote unquote, we lose the trade?
Yeah. I mean, I'm of the opinion now that if the CJ deal is there, you take it and run. Even if it's a 1-on-1. I know I had some Twitter interactions yesterday, basically people saying, oh, the Blazers should add in a first rounder. Where I'm just like, no, not at this point, because Ben is just owed that much money, and you're basically gambling on a question mark at this point. I don't believe that that's the approach. But one interesting subplot, which I think is getting forgotten in all of this, and I just brought him up, Seth Curry. Mm-hmm. So we saw him just blow up in the playoffs. Yeah. He like when Daryl said in the presser, we have one near all-star, like I was reading along on Twitter, I was like, you have two near all-stars right now. Yeah. If Seth Curry, if his playoffs is going to transfer over to the regular season, he's like that good. But he's also got only 2 years left, right?
2 years left. Yeah.
2 years left
At about $8 million a pop.
Yeah, I have it here, 8.1, 8.5. So that means that you have 2 seasons now where you have Joel, you have a bargain on your hands with Seth Curry, and you know that you can pencil him in for 44% from downtown on presumably high volume, and maybe with no Ben Simmons, you can just go into this very free-flowing nature offensively. You and I have spoken for months about how Seth needed to take more threes, and he did, and look at the results, they were great. Mm-hmm. Maybe now is just the time to just say, okay, look, we know that we have Seth, who we can give a much larger role than he was otherwise playing last year. So there's another avenue, even if we do, like you've said, like lose the trade talent-wise, we can pivot some of that offensive responsibility onto Seth, at least offensively speaking. He's not a playmaker, but he is a shooter. He can make up a lot of those positions by just shooting the damn basketball. So I don't know what the trade is, but I do think getting someone in who's a replacement for Ben, as well as the evolution of Seth, as well as the fact that you won't have to play 4-on-5 basketball anymore, that you can actually play a spread out offense, I think that's worth more. No, I mean, that has to be the priority, in my opinion. And I realize, people are pointing this out all the time. Ben is the second best defender in the league. He's one of the most versatile defenders ever, which is not wrong. But this is the NBA in 2021. We are seeing in the playoffs how defensive teams or defensive players are just not the same factor. You need guys who can shoot. You need guys who can self-create. You need guys who can create something for themselves. And if you don't have that, you are going to be significantly worth less. Ben can't do those things. He can create for others, and that's it. So I don't know if the element of Seth Curry is enough of a carrot for Morey and for Doc and everyone else to basically say, okay, we actually have a very, very good team right here. It's just a matter of screwing around and finding the right fit.
Yeah, I mean, remove Ben Simmons from the equation for a minute, and the Sixers could, like, even without Danny Green too, if they just go in with what they have, they could go into next season with Maxey, Curry, Thibault, Tobias, and Embiid as their starting five. And that's a playoff team, regardless of what they get for Ben Simmons. So, can they turn Ben, if they do decide to trade him, can they turn him into something that elevates their ceiling from playoff team to championship contender? Right. That's the big question. But, like, they're in relatively good shape, especially compared to where they were last year, either way. The CJ deal, I think, is the one that's going to come up the most frequently, just because these are two teams that probably need to make a substantial change. And I think if you're the Sixers and you're trying to come up with trade ideas this offseason, you're looking at either teams that feel like they've hit their ceiling as currently constructed, or teams that have some amount of pressure to get back into the playoffs, and teams that have a glut in the backcourt. Right. So Portland falls into the, we feel like we just need to shake something up bucket. And I think, a CJ Curry backcourt defensively certainly concerns me, but offensively it's hard to ignore the potential there. I think and we saw, like, Trae Young is one of the worst defenders in the NBA, and he's in the conference finals right now because he drew two teams that couldn't mismatch on him. So even if you have this, a backcourt that has some pretty glaring liabilities, if the other team doesn't have the personnel to attack, it's not going to matter.
Defense is beginning to get just overrated a little bit. I mean, no, but you catch my drift, right? I mean, you hear all the time, like, defense is half the game. Mm-hmm. Not anymore. Like, if you have a defender and an offensive player, like, that is no longer 50-50 at all. It's like, 30-70 in terms of importance. Like, the offense right now is just king. You can't win a game solely exclusively off defense anymore. You just can't. Like, all right, Tips might do it once every blue moon, but blue moon, full moon. But like, it's not the norm. Like, right now, it's offense. I would trust a CJ Seth pairing. I wouldn't even care, because look, that's 5-6 made triples at the very least per game on excellent efficiency. And that's going to help everyone else stay home on those guys so Joe can go one-on-one in the post. Are you kidding me? Like, the offense might be the best offense the Sixers have seen in the past 25 years. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, there's still this rim protecting center in Joel Embiid, who used to be brought up in DPOY conversations as well. So it's not like they don't they don't have defenders still. Matisse Thybulle is still around. Right. Tyrese Maxey has defensive upside, even though, as a rookie, he wasn't highly influential defensively. He had moments, but he was the guy when he came in. Like, that was one of the reputations on him as well. Give him a little bit of seasoning defensively. He's going to come with it because he's got so much energy. I'm not out on that group whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I mean, you're right about the offensive potential. Like, they are not going to have the second best defense in the league if they trade Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum. But they're also not going to have, I think they're 14th in half-court offense this year. I would expect that to go up to the top 10. And I think, you kind of have to weigh which one is more important once we get to the playoffs. Like, Ben, I think Danny played against Trae in the first half of game one, got destroyed. Ben did a better job against Trae, but I said it all series, you're not going to stop Trae Young or any other elite creator. You're not going to stop Steph Curry. You're not going to stop Damian Lillard, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, go down the list, like Devin Booker, Chris Paul. You're just not going to stop any of those guys. You can make them less efficient, but I do wonder if given Ben's particular struggle against that archetype of player, like he's really good and really versatile, can guard forwards, like can guard, he played some of the best defense on Luka that I've seen anyone play. But you also have Matisse Thybulle waiting in the wings, who's, a second team all defensive player, despite playing only 20 minutes a game. So I wonder if, you trade Ben for a more offensively minded player, you move Matisse into the starting lineup if you can't re-sign Danny Green, and maybe Matisse just absorbs a lot of that defensive responsibility that Ben had. So,
and Matisse takes threes.
Yeah, right, exactly. He's not, I'm not going to ask him to create off the dribble all the time, but he at least started to add that to his bag as the year went on. Like if he got a swing pass and there was an open lane to the basket, he could dribble and go up and dunk. And that's all this, that's all you need. Like Matisse, I think he really seemed to take that game 7 loss hard. Mm-hmm. He had the dumb foul at the end with a minute left that really kind of ended the Sixers' chances of coming back. And I've never seen him that despondent after the game.
He had that press conference, right? Where he was just like, he barely spoke. It felt like he was just...
It was like 2 or 3 word answers to every question. So I think he, it's hard to remember, but he had such a weird first 2 years because of the pandemic. Like this will be his first normal off season. And I don't think Matisse is going to come back and be like a 45% 3-point shooter. But if he can come back, he's at 30.1 this year. If he can come back and be a 35% 3-point shooter next year, like he knows what he has to work on this summer. Defense, he's fine. Offense is where he's got to improve. So if we, like, the Sixers have some of these young wild cards, Maxey and Matisse in particular, where if they really round out their skill sets, what Ben brings to the table might not be as essential. I do think, in terms of his facilitation, like that's his primary value offensively. He's just so good, and he's so good. He's always among the league leaders of creating 3-point shots, which is wild considering he refuses to take any. So I think if we're looking for Ben trades, that's where I'm looking. Like, ideally you're going to get a lead guard back. So I want to throw a couple teams at you. Nice. And let's see if we can come up with a framework that makes sense, because I've had Cavs people in particular, I've had a couple people reach out now and say, like, what's a deal that makes sense for Ben Simmons?
Yeah.
And I think Daryl, if Kobe Altman's still in charge of the Cavs, I don't even remember. Whoever the Cavs GM is these days, if he calls and say, what do you want for Ben Simmons? And I'm Daryl Morey, I'm saying, ideally, like, you're going to say one of Sexton or Garland. I would say Garland probably over Sexton, just because you got one more year of team control over him.
And he passes a little bit more.
Right. But I think the Cavs would rebut with Sexton, which I'm okay with as well.
Yeah.
I would say Larry Nance Jr. would be the other one I would definitely want back. Mm-hmm. I think the Cavs would push back, and they would say Sexton and Love for Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do that deal? Sexton and Love for Simmons?
Love has 2 more years, right?
2 more years. He's 31.3 this year in 2021-22, and then 28.9 the following season.
Yeah, so it goes down at the end. So at least it doesn't go up.
Yep.
And then you could argue, maybe he's just so hell-bent on starting over somewhere else that maybe you can buy him out on the cheap, at least in the last year.
Or, he could just be resuscitated on a team that actually has playoff hopes.
Yeah, where I stand with power forwards who can't defend or dribble. So I would say, sure, if you want old Lauri Markkanen with rebounding. All right, so here's the thing with Love, right? An optimized Kevin Love or rejuvenated Kevin Love can also pass.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can actually replace some of Ben Simmons' playmaking from Love as well. Because if you take Sexton in, you're getting a scorer. You're not getting a playmaker. You're like, hell, if it's Sexton instead, let me just look up Philly here. Who would be your second best passer? Tobias. Like Tobias, or sorry, your best passer, that would be Tobias. And hell, even if you brought in Kevin Love, I mean, he would be averaging like 3 assists per game as well. Like, you would have so little on-ball playmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you probably need to, like, I would say it this way. Whoever the Cavs prioritize in wanting to give the Sixers, be that Sexton or Garland, I would then counter with, okay, we'll take the lesser of the two, but then we're also taking Larry Nance. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
exactly.
So you don't have to pay up that way. Yeah. But I would definitely, like you said, go for Garland just because of the passing. You just need passing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difficult, and it's a difficult idea here because you probably would have to take on Kevin Love there, and it's still an atrocious contract, and you don't really want to be saddled with that, especially in Joe's prime. Because if Love goes down with an injury, you're just looking at 30+ million that is empty. You catch my drift? Like, it's just absolutely. You can't use it. It'd be tough, but I'd probably do it if it's Garland. Like, Garland, Love, I would do, but I would also want something else. Let me just go look at the roster. I would look, like, I just want a little sweetener in some capacity. Like, maybe that's Dylan Windler? Maybe?
Or just like a future protected first.
Yeah, maybe. What's the contract status of Isaiah Hartenstein? He's got a player. He's a player option.
He's probably going to be a free agent.
Oh, he is. He's not going to pick that up. I thought it was a team option. If that was a team option, he would have been fun. But that's not going to happen. No, you're right. I mean, and the Cavs don't even have a whole lot. Like, I would put the Cavs on the list. I would put them at the top of the list.
That's fair. Yeah. I think I would not do Sexton and Love for Simmons. I would consider Sexton, Nance, and Love for, I think you would have to include George Hill from the Sixers side just for salary matching.
Right.
But Simmons and Hill for Sexton, Nance, and Love, I don't totally hate it.
Yeah. No, I think that's reasonable. I do. And, Garland also improved as a scorer a lot last year, and he's like 40% from downtown. He doesn't fit Joel's timeline, though. That's kind of my thing. Like, you want a prime player next to Joe. That's not to say that Garland isn't good, but you want Garland 5 years from now.
Right.
You don't want Garland now. So I wonder if going young is the right answer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If the Zach LaVine deal is on the table, Zach LaVine is the best you could realistically hope for at this point.
Yeah. Like, everyone is talking about McCollum. Like, obviously, I don't think Bulls have LaVine open for shopping. I don't think that's in the cards whatsoever. But he would be so much better than McCollum as well. Yeah. I would also imagine the Bulls, if they were even to entertain this, would ask for picks. They would ask for Thibault. They would ask for Maxey. I mean, Zach LaVine has, that value right now. So I don't think that is at all realistic, but I'll keep that Cavs trade in the back of my mind. I don't think it's bad. It's just, I think it may need to be reworked. I think maybe you include a third team, so you actually get someone who's a little bit better. You add some sweeteners. I don't know, but there might be something there. Yeah. What's the next team you have? Let me guess. It's Minnesota, right?
Minnesota is the other one that keeps coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a feeling. All right, hit me.
So we'll see what happens with the lottery tonight. We should have prefaced this, first of all. I mean, that's going to determine a lot, right? Like, if Minnesota keeps one of those, that pick and it lands in the top 3, that changes their calculus here as well.
Yeah, but we're recording this before the lottery, a couple hours before the lottery. Yes.
Yeah. So we don't know what's happening there. I don't want to include the 2021 pick. D'Angelo Russell's going to obviously be the salary match there. Yeah. Unless you want Ricky Rubio, but I mean, I guess you could, but no, I think D'Angelo Russell would be the main piece coming back.
Right.
I think Zach Lowe pitched Russell and Malik Beasley for Simmons.
Russell and Malik Beasley?
Yeah.
That's 44 million in outgoing. So
you'd probably have to include George Hill again.
Yeah, right. So it's Simmons and Hill. Okay. That's a lot of offense. I don't hate it. I question whether or not Karl Anthony Towns is going to throw a fit.
Yeah, that's the question with the Timberwolves is, they gave up that top 3 protected first and Wiggins to get D'Angelo Russell in here because Karl Anthony Towns loves him and is one of his good friends. But, we talked when they made that deal, like they're doubling down on offense to the expense of defense. I mean, offense is more valuable to some extent right now than defense, but they're going to have a bottom 10 defense as long as those 2 guys are the centerpieces of that team. And especially given the emergence of Anthony Edwards last year, I think you have to view Towns and Edwards as your centerpieces moving forward. Like Russell at best is your number 3. So if you can trade Russell for Ben Simmons, who can stiffen you up defensively, like a Edwards, Simmons, Towns fit conceptually actually makes a lot of sense.
It does. Again, though, you have to sell Towns on Anthony Edwards being his running mate, especially since there's like a 5-6 year difference between the two. At least him and D'Angelo are aligned age-wise. But Russell is also, dare I say, projects at least as being significantly worse. I mean, Anthony Edwards was averaging 24 points over the second half of the season?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's Russell and Beasley for Simmons, I do that immediately. That is so much offense. That is so much shooting. The Sixers would suddenly have a competent offense. You wouldn't know what, you would be sitting in your couch just giggling in December because they're hitting threes and they're doing stuff offensively that you haven't seen for the entirety of Joel's era there.
Yep.
I think you do that. I mean, I was when you brought something, I thought you would do something like Ricky Rubio, Malik Beasley, and picks or something like that, which I was like, that didn't feel right. But Russell and Beasley, yeah, I think I do that one just for the offensive upside. I think I do that one. You have the passing now, you have the shooting. Malik is also sneaky athletic. He can come in and really throw down some shots as well. I mean, not just threes, but he can get to the basket when he really wants to. So
yeah,
I actually like that one. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem too. We'll see. I mean, Joel Embiid is eligible to sign a Supermax this offseason, so we'll see if he does or if the Sixers offer it, if they can get him to sign some semblance of extension. But he's only signed for 2 more years right now. So, if you're constructing Ben Simmons trades with 2025 or 2027, 2027 first round picks, that's great for the long term.
Right.
And I think you do have to keep one eye on the long term. You can't just go full win now with any of these trades, but you're giving up a big value. This is in theory, at least a couple months ago, this was your biggest trade chip left for the Joel Embiid era. And if you're getting, if the main thing you're getting back is draft picks down the road, he's probably going to look at that and be like, well, that's not going to help me right now.
Right. And you can't go with someone who's in their mid-30s either. You need to have someone who is I don't want to be, dismissive of a lot of players, but you probably need someone who is older than 25 but younger than 30.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's you're totally right about you want Garland 5 years from now. That is the perfect way to phrase it.
Okay, hit me with the last team or several teams. I don't know how many teams you have. Just hit me with them.
So this team was not on my radar until I saw, I think this is sportsbetting.ag had props yesterday come out. Ben Simmons' next team if traded. So Portland is obviously favorite at plus 200. Washington is number 2 at plus 300, which I'm assuming is just a Simmons Bradley Beal deal.
Oh, no, it could be a Simmons and Russell Westbrook. Oh, my God. I've seen that around. Can we just take 1 minute before you actually go into your next team? Like, can we just discuss how people are completely forgetting that Joel Embiid and Russell Westbrook hate each other?
Yeah. If you want Joel Embiid not to sign the Supermax, trade Ben Simmons for Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's just get that out of the way immediately. They're not going to trade for Russell Westbrook.
Correct. Hopefully. If the 2016 to 2020 front office was in place, I would be much more nervous about it. Yeah. Well, I guess Daryl Morey did trade for Russell Westbrook a couple years ago, but then he also just got the hell out of Dodge once he realized the mistake he made. Number 3 on the list of terms of odds, the San Antonio Spurs.
All right.
Which I thought was interesting because if we're talking about like a player development staff that can quote unquote fix Ben Simmons, it's hard to think of a one that would be better than the Spurs.
Very much so, but what's the package?
So it'd have to be, I think, Derek White.
Yeah.
And then probably Devin Vassell. And then, I mean, the Spurs they have a ton of cap space this offseason.
So they can absorb some of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't have to worry about salary matching, which I think is an advantage here.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if White and Vassell is enough.
It's not, and why would you want, again, you want Devin Vassell 5 years from now.
Yeah. Keldon Johnson instead.
Yeah, you want Keldon Johnson 4 years from now. I hear you. He's like, those are good pieces. Those are interesting pieces. At the very least, Derek White kind of fits the bill.
Right.
Is Derek White a bit, not Simmons-esque in that sense, but is he also a bit too passive? A little bit?
I mean, this year, I think we saw him more aggressive.
Oh, yeah, we did.
But yeah, it's certainly a concern. And, can he be like the primary playmaker that you need? I don't know. I think he's probably better suited as a combo guard. So you're like, I'm not in love with this idea.
Right.
But they just have so many, like White plus not having to worry about salary matching plus, Vassell, Lonnie Walker maybe.
Dejounte?
Yeah, that was the other one. I mean, the spacing is what I would be worried about.
I mean, look, he's getting better over the past 2 years. He's shot. Well, you can't almost compare them because he took so many more threes this year. But over the past 2 years, he's at least at 33.5%. I mean, this year he was at 31.7 on 3 attempts. That is 3 attempts more per game than Ben Simmons.
Yep.
So he's not a total liability on that end.
Yeah.
And he gives you defense. He gives you a lot of defense.
Yeah.
He gives you a lot of rebounding at the point guard position. He's giving you passing. He's a low turnover guy. I mean, and mentality wise, he's hungry. Like him and Joe, of course. They would feed well off of each other, just energy wise. I think. I love Dejounte though. I don't think, like, I could see a scenario where the Spurs actually gets a call and they go, no.
Yeah, and I guess it's harder. Dejounte and Ben would fit worse together than Derek and Ben would. So maybe that's right. Yeah. Maybe they would, if they are entertaining a Ben Simmons acquisition.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But why would they? I mean, look, Dejounte, right? He's over the next 3 years, he's earning roughly 48 million, which is basically what Ben Simmons is going to earn in a year and a half.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked a lot this year about where the Spurs lacking was top tier talent. Like Ben isn't that in the playoffs, but in the regular season, I mean, that. So if they're looking like we want an infusion of talent, we're buying low on this guy who we think we can fix offensively. Right. Again, like this is a deal structured around DeJounte Murray. It's not going to be a win for the Sixers,
right?
Optically, but it could make sense for both sides.
Yeah.
Like, what if you did the Spurs want to pay Lonnie Walker? I have no idea.
I don't think they should want to pay Lonnie Walker, but I also don't think they should want to pay Ben Simmons $20 million more when they have Dejounte at 15, 16, and 17 million per year. Or per year. A year. I get what you're saying, though. And obviously, having a non-3-point shooter like Ben meet up with Pop would be a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Pop would love it. But no, I like when I talk about the Spurs and I say they need a star, I'm talking about someone who can put the ball in the basket. I'm not talking about someone who's scared to shoot outside of 3 feet.
Yeah. Well, I could see Ben functioning in the DeMar DeRozan role.
Yeah.
Facilitating wise, but yeah. Well, I mean, maybe you just lean more heavily on Derek White as the primary scorer. I don't know. The Spurs is a half-baked one, but I think they at least they have some potential there.
Right. I would look at Murray. I mean, I understand that he's 24. We just put up that 25 to 30 moniker, but Murray's good, and he's like similar age as Embiid. I kind of like that one. It's just a matter of, does it make sense? Like I said, I could definitely see the Spurs saying no thank you and just going about their business. Especially because they have so much cap space this year. They could get creative. They could find a lot of different avenues that potentially might be better than Ben Simmons. I don't know. I mean, I think they want to keep their options open, but it's interesting. Do you have another team?
The only other one, Charlotte, I think could be interesting as well, but I don't know I think they just need a big at this point. So I don't know.
Oh, they're getting Daniel Tice in free agency. So.
Right. So they're like toward a little further down my list. I mean, something around Terry Rozier could be semi-interesting. They're not giving up Miles Bridges at this point. And so many of the other guys aren't under contract beyond this season. So it's hard to...
You don't want an in-prime Gordon Hayward?
No, I do not. Sacramento would be the other team.
Yes, there we go. I was waiting for Sacktown. Okay, hit me.
Okay, so they're obviously not trading De'Aaron Fox. They should not trade Tyrese Halliburton. Buddy Hield would be the big chip coming back.
Yeah. And I like it already.
I mean, I guess the Sixers could take a flyer on Marvin Bagley if they were so inclined as well.
I mean, you wouldn't have to. What about DeLon Wright?
Yeah, either or.
If you got Buddy Hield and DeLon Wright in, Wright would probably be your point guard. I imagine he's not a. Again, you would need someone who can really create.
Yeah,
and I mean, I love Wright, but he's not that.
And that's what makes these trades so tricky. It's like if you're trading Ben, you want a lead guard in return, and there are so few teams that have an extra one. I think Minnesota and Cleveland are the best two examples of we have so much. Charlotte, if Devontae Graham wasn't a free agent, or if they plan on bringing back Devontae Graham, then maybe Terry Rozier is more expendable. But there's just so much uncertainty with Charlotte. So Minnesota,
but Monk is a restricted free agent as well. So two of their primary guards are just you don't know if they're returning or not.
Right. So Minnesota and Cleveland have the best in terms of we know what we're dealing with at this current juncture.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you could come up with it a Buddy Hield, Seth Curry backcourt, might not have not a ton of playmaking, but goddamn, can they shoot?
Yeah, that's a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
I was thinking about if there's a deal to be had or found in New Orleans, but you know what? It's again, they have so many young guys. The guys who fit Embiid from an age perspective are just not good.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Dallas, you have Porzingis, but that again, why? Why that doesn't really really track.
I saw someone float Simmons for Kemba Walker, and I just have to hope that was trolling at this point, which kudos if it is.
I've seen that a couple of times too, and I don't think it necessarily is, unfortunately. But of course, you and I know that's preposterous.
What about Memphis?
Well, who are you thinking of?
D'Anthony Melton. You're not getting John Morant, obviously.
No, obviously.
But D'Anthony Melton, probably Dylan Brooks.
I mean, do you really need D'Anthony Melton when you have like Matisse Thybulle defensively? I feel as though D'Anthony Melton is like, he's sort of Matisse and Tyrese Maxey wrapped into one, but a little bit worse.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
I don't know. I mean, it's fine. It doesn't really do a whole lot for me.
Yeah.
I'm not blown away by it. I will, however, say I'm surprised that you haven't visited Indiana.
I mean, God, that's the dream. Malcolm Brogdon, I thought Malcolm Brogdon, before this Ben meltdown, if they could somehow get him in, he's the dream guy to pair with Ben and with Tobias, with Joel.
Yeah, but even without Ben, he's a dream.
Yeah, but I have no idea. I mean, this would have to be Indiana's like ripping apart its team. Like, why do you want Ben when you already have Turner, Sabonis, and TJ Warren? Ben's gonna play the two. Like, I mean, if you're trading, honestly, I think like Ben and Turner would be a better fit than Ben and Sabonis. So if you're trading Sabonis, and I mean, like, I still would want to play TJ Warren at the 4. You would have to trade Brogdon, Sabonis, and Warren, and you're left with Ben, Turner, LeVert, and whatever you get back for Sabonis and Warren.
Right. Yeah, the problem here isn't how Brogdon would fit on the Sixers. This is entirely how would Indiana go about trading for Ben and make those pieces fit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you could probably add in a third team, maybe loop them in and see what happens. But what team would that be, and how do they fix Indiana's issue that's going to stem from acquiring Ben Simmons? I don't know. But I do know that if Daryl Morey should identify someone specifically to come in and just and be that final piece, it's Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah. Absolutely. If there's any way they can get him, they need to. But I just don't know. I feel like it would have to be for something that isn't
right.
I mean, isn't Ben, isn't like I don't even know. I mean, that's the problem with how the Sixers salaries are constructed. It's like you have these 3 guys on these $30 million deals, and other than that, like George Hill is your best salary matching chip at $10 million.
I mean, if you got Brogdon and Jeremy Lamb, right? You have your starting lineup. I mean, that's you're running Curry and Brogdon and Lamb on the perimeter, and then Tobias as perimeter inside and then Embiid inside.
Yeah, or start Thybulle or start Danny Green, have Lamb as your 6-man.
Yeah, you could do that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, if there's a way, if someone can come up with a way to get Malcolm Brogdon to Philly, apologize to Caitlin Cooper in advance for me.
Yeah.
but that's certainly a dream.
No, but okay, let's dig into Brogdon's numbers as well. I mean, look, there's none of the Ben Simmons issues. So first and foremost, 21 plus points per game, 5 plus rebounds, almost 6 assists. Last year he was at 7 plus assists.
Mm-hmm.
Efficiency wise, he's almost an 89% free throw shooter for his career, Brian. I mean, 38+% from downtown. Last year took a major step up in volume, took 6.7 attempts from downtown. Efficiency wise, he's just all over. The playmaking is there. He's got one of the lowest turnover percentages in the NBA, apparently. 9.8%. Anything below 10 is fantastically good.
Yeah.
I mean, he drives, he spots up, he shoots off the dribble. He is probably, in terms of realism, the best fit I could see with Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris.
Absolutely. Zero. Yeah, maybe it's a 3-team deal where Simmons is going elsewhere. That team is sending something to Indiana. Indiana is sending Brogdon to Philly.
Okay, let's workshop it then. We have time. Let's workshop it. Let's just put it out there. Who needs Ben Simmons?
Maybe I would revisit. Yeah, Portland could be one, or the Cavs, or Minnesota.
Then let's say Portland, and then maybe if they swing CJ McCollum to Indiana in some capacity. Indiana likes its shooters.
And you can trust Karras as more taking on more of the playmaking. Like you'll have Karras and CJ doing a lot of the playmaking.
Yep. So we still get the Ben Simmons CJ McCollum trade. We just add in Malcolm Brogdon.
Right. Perfect. Or I mean, with Cleveland too, if you want Sexton. Oh, I guess why does Indiana need Love though?
Yeah. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do that.
Minnesota, would D'Angelo Russell be? No, it's probably the CJ deal.
Sending D'Angelo from Minnesota to Indiana after he's been in Golden State and played for the Lakers and the Brooklyn. Like he started off his career with all the major markets, and then he's just a tourist in the small markets. That would be hilarious.
Indiana's a little warmer than Minnesota, at least.
That is true. That is true. No, but I mean, theoretically, like a CJ McCollum in Indiana would be nice, though. Like if you just look at it from the Pacers' perspective, they need more. There's no they would be downgrading from Malcolm Brogdon to CJ McCollum. That's a downgrade. Mm-hmm. It's not a tremendous downgrade, but it is one. So you would need to add in something. I don't know who needs to add that in. I don't think Portland should add anything else, because if they're getting Ben Simmons and they're giving up CJ McCollum, I don't think you should give up anything for that. I really don't. I think nowadays with the luxury of offensive players, I don't think they need to give something up. So I'm looking at Philly. That means Philly needs to give something else up than Simmons. And that's a tough pill to swallow. That's a tough one to sell to the fan base as well. Like, look, we had this guy, like we hyped him up as maybe a future MVP, and now we have to relinquish an asset to introduce to you Malcolm Brogdon.
So what if Indiana, I mean, it sounded, based on our conversation with Caitlin, it sounded like she was pretty out on the Jeremy Lamb experience. So what if Indiana sends Jeremy Lamb as well, and then the Sixers send either Shake Milton, their pick this year, I think it's 28, a future first. Like I don't think I would give up Maxey or Thibault in that deal.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. You would have to go for some of the lesser things. B-ball Paul could be thrown in.
Oh no, B-ball Paul. Yeah.
No, but I hear you. I mean, yeah, it what was the pick? 28?
28, yeah.
I think that might do it, yeah.
They have it's 50 because the Knicks weren't terrible this year. It's because they have the Knicks second rounder as well, but unfortunately that's not as good as it.
Right. No, 28. I think that's a decent sweetener.
Yeah, because it's a cheap 4-year contract, but it's going to be cheap because it's at the end of the first round. And Indiana's.
Yeah, it's a 4-year rookie deal.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. So let's lay it out here. So you said let's expand the deal in. I'm pulling up everything right now. So it's Indiana. It's Philadelphia, and it is Portland. All right, let's get to it.
So Ben to Portland, 28 to Indy. Portland sends CJ to Indy.
Yeah.
Indy sends Brogdon and Lamb. Lamb is just pure salary matching.
Yeah, exactly.
To Philly.
I like that. What about you? You're a Sixers guy. Like, how would you feel with that trade? Would you feel you're leaving like a ton of talent or value on the table, or would you feel, hey, we actually got a trade where we have a fit now?
Yeah, I mean, again, optically, you might consider that a loss. But I think a team with, if your starting five is Brogdon, Curry, Green or Thibault, Harris, Embiid, and you have Jeremy Lamb, you have Shake Milton. If Thibault is not starting, he's coming off the bench. That's interesting.
I think so too. And like, I understand that Caitlin was out on the Jeremy Lamb experience. I understand that. But I mean, looking at his numbers, again, she watched a lot more Pacers than I did, and she is much smarter than I am. So I'm sure that these numbers lie more than they are. But I still see some upside in a guy who may not be starting, but like as someone who comes off the bench, plays 15 to 20 minutes per night, hits 40% from his threes, like puts up 8 to 10 points, you know, playing both the 2 and the 3 because he's got that size. I think under the right circumstances, you could turn Lamb into an asset that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually probably the best deal that I've seen floated. So we've done well. It's much better than like the Simmons for John Wall or whatever garbage is floating out there. I think this has some legs.
I can't wait to lob this to Twitter and both of us will get murdered.
Yeah, Indiana fans are like, what the F?
Yeah, like that's interesting, right? I mean, it's the two fan bases I could see having like major issues with this is Philly, because there's still, for some fans at least, a tremendous emotional attachment to Ben Simmons. Mm-hmm. And then I think Indiana would go, that's not enough. Like we need more in some capacity. I think Portland is like, okay, if we don't have to give up anything else, it's CJ for Ben. Yeah, we can live with that. That's my take on it. Or maybe all three fan bases are mad online and we won and it's a good trade.
Right, yeah. If everyone hates it, that means it's a good sign usually.
Yeah, that's by law, actually. Yeah. Wow. I mean, Brian, we talked about going on, doing this YouTube exclusive, and we said we should do it 20 minutes. I don't know if you've seen how long we recorded, but it's basically a podcast episode. So, like, for you guys who've been watching, thank you for following along. If you have another idea for a Ben Simmons trade, or if you think we're idiots, go in the comment section, comment, give us your trade. I will force Brian to read the comments, so he'll also give you insights into what he's thinking. I'll give you insights to what I'm thinking. Let's have a conversation about Ben Simmons, the trade market, and everything. Thank you for following along. Brian, thank you for wanting to do this, obviously, and catch you on the pod.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, and God willing, Daryl will just pull the trigger on this trade soon, so we don't have to talk about it all off season.
Let's hope we can get this video out first, though.
Yeah, true.